Hello there, and we're back for Kenobi Episode 5, the second to last episode of the series. But first of all, why do they have a 2-minute recap at the start of every episode? It definitely isn't for people binge watching the short 6-episode series in the future. So I guess it's for us watching it now, but isn't that a little weird? The episodes are highly anticipated, they're only an hour long, and they're released only a week apart from each other. You'd think that Disney would trust its audience of people watching it live to keep up with the story. Do they really worry that every episode will be so unmemorable that we need a full recap every single week? But I digress. Like the rest of Kenobi, Episode 5 had some bad and some good. It's a very mixed show, but in my opinion, this episode was actually one of the worst. This video might be an overall controversial hot take, but I really disliked this episode except for just one scene, and it was by far my least favorite overall. With everything said, the only thing that I'll remember from this episode is the small scene of Obi-Wan and Anakin dueling on Coruscant. And it's only one of a handful of scenes that I'll probably remember from the whole series long term, including other ones like Owen Lars and Obi-Wan watching young Luke, and Princess Leia on Alderaan with Bail Organa. Let's dive right into it, and you can let me know in the comments what you think. Now, of course, I need to start with the bad. Reva became the Grand Inquisitor just for that simple tracker trick after her many failures? Why is Vader so nice to this one character for no real reason? I guess it's because of the later reveal, but he's still pretty nice to her compared to the other Imperials. I swear, if she wasn't a villain and part of the Empire, she would have been mostly a Mary Sue like Rey. Although I guess at the end they did have a little bit of realism with Vader beating her up, but I mean, she survives, again, and then goes on to be the main character, even more. So it's not like there were any super strong consequences for her there, relatively speaking, to what she's been doing. And they just took over the droid so easily like that? Like, just slip some little thing in it and boom, it's evil now and no one notices? I'm surprised the little fight with Leia versus her droid wasn't the whole episode, knowing Disney. But the whole series just has no impact. I didn't really feel anything watching this episode. The dramatic music and camera angles act like everything is so intense, but none of it really is. There's nothing to fear for because the only characters we really care about are Obi-Wan and Leia, the two that we know are guaranteed to always be safe. And there's nothing to cheer for or to celebrate for the exact same reason. The prequel movies managed to make some good tension by introducing new characters that the people care about, like Padme, Mace Windu, Count Dooku, Darth Maul, even General Grievous. You know, just various characters that are really unique and add a lot of flavor to the story to create drama. Even though they're prequels, it was still exciting to see Mace Windu in Revenge of the Sith because he has such a strong connection to the other characters and we don't know how things will really turn out for him. And the same goes for the details of Padme as a character. But in this Obi-Wan show, the only minor characters that have any depth at all are the Imperial spy and the Inquisitor. But between the goofy fight scenes, the poor acting, the shallow storylines, and the fact that they have no real connections to the other characters or any real explanation of their place in the overall story, they just end up feeling meaningless, which makes the whole show feel kind of meaningless. So you're telling me that the third sister, Reva, was a Jedi youngling from the opening scene of Part 1, like all the fan theories predicted, even though the show didn't make it explicit or clear in any way until almost the end of the entire series, which takes away any impact that her character possibly could have had from the beginning? Just not good writing or storytelling at all. And then being a youngling during Order 66, she met Anakin in person, watched him kill the other younglings, and then, as she puts it, she tried to defend them, but then escaped Anakin by playing dead. How does that make any sense? You can't engage an enemy like Anakin who has such strong force power and then just escape him after you start fighting by playing dead. That is not how the Force works. It's so rough to watch episode after episode of this Inquisitor's shallow story when so many deeper versions have already been explored in Rebels and Jedi Fallen Order. I tried really hard to give them benefit of the doubt on this, but there's only one episode left in the show now, and it's not looking good for recovery of the story. Things seem to get worse with each episode rather than better. At this point, I don't even think the show could really be saved in a fan edit. There's just too many key story elements missing. The whole thing is fluff, and if you cut it down, there wouldn't be much left. All that you would have is a few short scenes that amount to little more than an emotional trailer for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show we should have gotten. And a minor nitpick to cap things off, Disney does not understand lightsabers. For the last time, they are not baseball bats. You do not need to swing them like a club over and over to beat down stormtroopers. And you do not need to swing the saber around like you're hitting baseballs to deflect blaster bolts. Just compare this deflection from the prequels with those from the Kenobi show. Night and day. It used to be so much more elegant, even in the original trilogy. And one final question as we head into the finale. Where the hell is Qui-Gon Jinn? Did Disney just completely forget about him, that he's supposed to be one of the main integral parts of Obi-Wan's journey between episode 3 and 4? But I think I've finally figured out really the core of why this show does not work. There's one specific thing that this show completely misses the mark on every time, and that is tone. This show takes place between Revenge of the Sith and Rogue One. In Revenge of the Sith, everyone dies, everything's dark, and there's a little spark of hope at the end. And Rogue One is the same way. Both of them are powerful, emotional, well-written stories. They attach you to some memorable characters with strong personalities right from the beginning. They tie those characters to the core storyline. They destroy everything, kill everyone, and make that dark, gritty center of the Star Wars story feeling. And then they end it with some small hope that leads into the original trilogy. The Kenobi show, however, takes a more traditional Disney approach, like the sequel films and Solo. The bad guys are uncontrolled and always yelling. They're not threatening in any way. They're just constantly annoying children throwing temper tantrums over every little thing, and they always fail. The good guys basically never struggle. They get out of every situation with such ease that there's no tension and it looks like a slapstick comedy. By the time we get to the darkness at the end of the Kenobi show, I'm so disconnected from the characters that I don't even know most of their names, and when they make their big dramatic sacrifices, I don't really care at all. I'm kind of happy they're out of the story, honestly. And the set pieces used are just sad knockoffs of things that we've already seen before, but this time in a new context that breaks all the lore of the other movies. And that Vader versus Reva fight at the end of the episode, a lot of people liked it, but I just could not get into it. For me, this holds the new record for the stupidest Star Wars duel I've ever seen. The sequels had some pretty bad ones, but wow, the incompetence of this one with Vader and Reva blew me away. Vader not using his lightsaber at the beginning and just casually defeating her with the Force, that was great. But it was horribly, horribly executed beyond recognition. It looks like it's still supposed to be a lightsaber fight from the choreography, but Vader is just kind of dancing around and pushing her with his hand instead of a blade. I swear, it looks almost like ballet. And if Vader is really that strong and he really does care that much and he really is taking Reva down, why wouldn't he just easily defeat her with one quick move? The man just pulled a starship out of the sky, ripped off the wall, and all with very little effort. You don't think he could do that to Reva in 2 seconds? The fact that it took him so long to beat her and that Reva dodged his Force attacks so often was honestly just kind of embarrassing to watch. It made me feel bad for Vader. And then the ending. I knew the moment that Bail Organa sent that incredibly stupid, pointless message to Obi-Wan, explicitly saying everything without any real code words and actually conveying Obi-Wan no new information anyway, that this was all just a really poorly written setup for Reva learning about Luke. And then of course, Disney being Disney, that's exactly what they went for. I feel like the bad of this episode was so incredibly dense that I can't even fit it all into one review video. This second to last episode is the one that finally broke me to the point that the show is now on the same level for me as the other low-level Star Wars content like the sequels and the Solo movie. Maybe that's a little bit harsh and it's actually a few steps above those, but it's so poorly made that I would actively discourage people from watching it because it ruins and detracts more than it adds. If someone wants Kenobi content from the show in that kind of time period, I'd recommend they watch maybe the first couple episodes or maybe just the highlight clips on YouTube, but I don't even think it's worth watching the whole show. There were a few good scenes among the first few episodes, and then things just got worse and worse with no end until everything just seems meaningless and boring and serves no purpose to the overall story or characters whatsoever anymore. This should have been a 2-hour movie of Obi-Wan on Tatooine going on little adventures in Mos Eisley or something like that. The 5-hour-long TV show all about this fanfiction inquisitor's poorly written angst is not worth the time. I'll watch the last episode and make my review of it just for closure of this failed series and to see if there's any little gems that can be taken from it still. But if this episode has inspired me in any way, it's only to come back later for a longer video covering all the mistakes of every episode. Watching these later episodes hasn't done anything to fix the problems from the first ones. It's actually amplified them and ruined some of the good parts. It kind of reminds me of the feeling of watching the sequels, where The Force Awakens had a lot of problems but some good potential, and then it just kind of fell off a cliff with the next two movies. Kenobi wasn't that level of bad, but it's trying. But, oh right, good things about the episode. I should probably talk about that too. I suppose the couple of scenes of Obi-Wan practicing lightsaber combat with Anakin was a cool concept, and it was nice to see. Even though they were a lot darker than they should have been, and they didn't even bother to de-age either actor's appearance to match their Attack of the Clones look. Just check out the difference in Attack of the Clones connection you can get by a basic, quick de-aging algorithm like the one applied here by Darth Borg on YouTube just soon after the episode aired. Completely different, and the one with the de-aged Anakin that looks like Attack of the Clones actually made me feel something despite the rest of the show being not very good. Although I'm very glad to see that Hayden actually got some scenes with Ewan instead of just being in a Vader suit the whole time or standing dramatically in the distance. At least he got some scenes, he's still a great actor, and it's nice to see them together again. I would really be tempted to take the good things from this show and cut them down to a 1-hour fan edit or something, but I'm not even sure there's enough going on in this show to even make that work. Which is such a shame, considering that they brought back Hayden and Ewan, but they didn't actually give them any real story to work with. I came into this show with extremely low expectations, but I feel like the writing fell even far below that somehow. After this episode of Kenobi, I honestly have no interest or excitement for the final episode. What I want now is a palate cleanser. This episode just made me want to go rewatch Attack of the Clones and reread the old Fantastic EU novels that tell Obi-Wan and Anakin's stories in a much more interesting emotional way that makes more sense. I highly recommend a set of 3 book series that follow one overall connected story, from Obi-Wan as Qui-Gon's apprentice, to Obi-Wan as Anakin's master, to Obi-Wan watching over young Luke and Leia. These series are Jedi Apprentice, Jedi Quest, and The Last of the Jedi. Don't worry, it's not The Last Jedi, it's The Last of the Jedi, a much better book series than the sequel movie, and completely unrelated in every way. I also haven't had a chance to read it myself yet, but I've heard good things about the newer Kenobi book by John Jackson Miller as well. So if you're interested in that one, I've linked a review of it from my friend over at 2 Star Wars Nerds in the description of this video. Go check it out. But there's been a lot wrong with the Kenobi TV show on Disney+, so go let me know in the comments what problems hit you the hardest, but also what were your favorite stories from the old Star Wars Expanded Universe. Until next time, this is Deep Dive, signing off.